Before we go any further, I just want to go over a few confidentiality rules with you. If you're deemed a threat to yourself or to others, if there is mention of abuse or neglect towards a child, or if my notes are subpoenaed by the court, that's when I would have to extend my information further. Is that understood?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's start off by if you can tell me what brings you in today.
So I've been having a really hard time dealing with my anxiety and feeling overwhelmed.
Okay. And growing up, your family, tell me what your family was like. Did they have feelings of being overwhelmed and anxious?
Both my parents were pretty uptight, and because they were uptight, I felt like it made them always feel like on edge and like nervous. So I guess like anxious to an extent.
Okay. And can you describe to me how that affected you during your childhood with both of your parents having that sort of personality?
With them being so strict and uptight, it made me develop anxiety over like small things like going to hang out with my friends or just doing anything really.
Okay. So you've mentioned having a lot of anxiety since you were small and dealing with it with your parents. Regarding a marriage or relationship, are you involved in one right now? And if so, how would you say that your anxiety affects that?
Right now I am currently with my husband. Um, we also have a child, but he doesn't really like do his share in parenting. So because of that, that causes me to be really stressed, super overwhelmed. I'm also in school, so trying to like do my part, his part, and then also juggling school has just been extremely overwhelming.
Okay, so you've mentioned that you're married, you're also going through schooling, and you have a child, which sounds like that can be a very heavy load, and sounds like you're dealing with quite a bit. And you mentioned that your partner is not really involved in your child's life, and that's mostly where you come in. Can you tell me how that makes you feel with you having to carry all that responsibility?
Just like very burnt out, anxious, just feeling like he's very like unreliable, like putting all the pressure on me.
Okay. And have you ever had an open conversation with him about how you feel about that?
I have, and he's not very like responsive to it. He doesn't really care.
Okay, so how does he normally respond when you ask him or tell him how you're feeling?
He's pretty negative about it. He'll just, because I'm in school, I'm not working a lot. I am working as well, but just not as much because I have to juggle school and also our kid. So, he usually just is very negative when I bring it up to him, and he doesn't really think that my feelings are like valid because he's like the one mostly bringing in the money. So because he is the one like the breadwinner in the situation, he just doesn't feel like he has to do anything more.
Okay. So you've explained that he's sort of the breadwinner and feels like he doesn't have to take as much responsibility when it comes to the child as you would. Concerning that, does he make an effort to make a relationship with your son?
Our son is still very little, but he doesn't really, like, he is there, but after work, he doesn't want to, like, he doesn't want to take over.
Okay. Okay, and how is his family involved in your life and your child's life?
His family is also kind of the same. He's like an only child, so his mom specifically is always like on his side, no matter if it's right or wrong. Like, she also thinks because he's the main breadwinner and that he's the one mostly paying for our like housing bills, that he doesn't owe me or our son anything more, pretty much.
Okay. So, from what you've mentioned, it seems like even his family doesn't really get as involved as you'd hope, and all of that responsibility again still falls on you, and no one really acknowledges, everything that you're juggling all at once, which seems like it can be very stressful. So, you mentioned with your husband that you have to do everything around the house. Now, how is your current living situation?
Right now we're living pretty comfortably, in terms of like having like a good stable house. It's more just like within the house that we're having issues, but living situation is good. We do have like a roof over our head.
Okay. So, from what you've described, it seems like you're pretty comfortable where you're living now. It's just kind of the dynamic in the household that's causing a bit of an issue. So, you mentioned you were in school as well.
Yeah.
What are you in school for at the moment?
So I'm currently enrolled in social service work.
That's awesome. Okay. And with your schooling, do you find that your life is kind of focused more on school, or you focus more on home, or you try to divide your attention?
I would like to be more focused on school. Obviously, I would obviously make time for my child, but there's times where it's like my husband comes home from work, and I think like, I have homework that I gotta do after spending the whole day with my son, or coming home early from school to watch our son, of course. But I think I need to be spending more time on schoolwork, and that he should be contributing more.
Okay, so it's very apparent that from what you've stated, you really have to split your attention to every part of your life, because you don't really have enough wiggle room with the help you're getting at home. Your husband isn't really doing that for you. And you also mentioned that you're working as well on top of school. So can you tell me currently where you're employed and what you're doing?
So right now I'm currently employed at Puma. I work as a part-time supervisor. I have been trying to make that work between school and obviously finding like time to take care of my son, like, because if I'm at work, then I can't watch him. If I'm at school, then I can't watch him. So I'm just trying to balance everything.
Okay. And so, with you've mentioned you're working, you're in school, can you describe to me at the moment how your financial status is within the home? Are you comfortable, or are you struggling?
I'm kind of struggling. Like I said, my husband takes care of like the housing and like all of our like water bills, all that kind of stuff he takes care of, which I'm very grateful for. But I am usually the one doing the grocery cleaning. I'm usually the one that is buying like diapers and everything else pretty much. So I'm not making like that much as a part-time supervisor, so it's been kind of a struggle.
Okay, so from what you're telling me, it sounds like work is also a lot, and with your finances, your husband makes enough to pay the bills, and you're kind of struggling at the moment with your own financials, which can be very hard on your mental health. Um, would you be able to describe to me how your mental health is at the moment currently?
I'm just feeling super burnt out and tired and just like very unmotivated to just honestly get up in the mornings.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you're really tired lately with everything going on. That's totally understandable. Have you had any health concerns in the past in your childhood?
Pretty much the only like health concerns would be like probably just my anxiety disorder.
Okay. And do you have any health concerns now that I should know about?
No, I don't.
Okay. And in regards to your mental health, so you've kind of shared your struggles with anxiety. How do you find yourself coping with that? Like, what do you do to kind of offset that anxiety?
To be honest, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just
Okay.
kind of,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So with your legal history, do you have any criminal record or anything to do with the law?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So can you tell me about any passions that you have? Because I know that you mentioned, you're always burnt out. You don't really have the time for yourself. But do you ever make that time to do something that you enjoy?
I would say a passion would be just like school, finishing school. I had my child very young. I'm only 21. So I just had my child really young. So I'm very passionate about completing school. I don't really have a lot of time to do much for myself. The most I really do is go to get my nails done.
Okay. So, you've mentioned you don't have the time for that, but do you have any interests that you would potentially want to take up a hobby in?
Um, to be honest, I don't really have a lot of like hobbies, but I would definitely like to get into like looking into stuff that I might be interested in doing.
Okay. Um, so you've mentioned before, like your life is very hectic. Do you have any religious beliefs that you partake in to kind of ground you?
So my family grew up like very Catholic. Parents are very strict and religious, but I wouldn't say that I am. I do enjoy like healing crystals and stuff like that, but nothing too like intense.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel like that kind of helps you, like dealing with your anxiety now, is to kind of ground yourself with those crystals or
I would
any?
say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so now that we've kind of gone over some of the basic questions, um, what do you feel like from childhood to now? What are your strengths in life? What do you feel like you have accomplished and you're proud of?
I would say that I'm very proud of my son and just like having him at a very young age. Like it's hard and it's not easy, and even though things can get tough at like within our household and miscommunication between myself and my husband, but I still think that we're doing like okay, you know what I mean? Like I just still feel like maybe things are rough, but like I don't think that a lot of like it's hard to be where we're at right now, like with having a house and taking care of a child so young. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, for sure. So, from everything you've told me, you've mentioned you were a teen mom, a really young mom, struggling to maintain a relationship. Now you've got a husband, you share a home, you have a child, you're in school, you're working. Um, with all of that going on, how would you say you would like to shape your goal to help your anxiety? What would be your goal with your anxiety?
My goal with my anxiety is just to find like a healthy and good way to manage my anxiety, like just finding something that is going to help me cope with it, where I'm not like getting like panic attacks or like lashing out or being like short tempered with my kids or like people at work or anything like that. So
Okay.
just finding a good way to cope.
Okay. So you've mentioned you want to find, some way of coping that's healthy. Have you ever thought about using exercise as a coping mechanism? Do you enjoy it?
I do say that like I'd say that like the thought of exercising I don't really like, but the times that I was like very into exercising, it always like made me feel very good. Like
Okay.
something to be like accomplished of at the end of the day.
Okay. Is that something you'd ever think maybe to pick up again, or maybe to um, see if there's other friends out there that want to do it with you, or?
It hasn't really been something that I've like thought about, but I'm definitely open to trying to move my mind elsewhere.
Okay, for sure. And you've mentioned you don't have time for hobbies at all, but would maybe trying to find an activity where you could get out with your son, would that be something that would interest you?
For sure, because I don't have like obviously a lot of resources in terms of like childcare, so something including my son is definitely something I'm looking for.
Okay. We can definitely look into some childcare options. I do know that the Boys and Girls Club has a great before and after school program, and during the day daycare for parents that work. As well, you've mentioned with everything going on, it's so hard to just kind of sit down and find time for yourself or just kind of ground yourself again. Your relationship is also a big part of that. So, have you ever considered maybe trying to get your husband out to do activities or try to make dates a monthly thing?
Um, I haven't really had time to think about that, but I'm also like interested in doing that as well to make
Okay.
sure we're on the same page.
Okay. Yeah, because from what you mentioned before, it just seems like you and your husband aren't really on the same page. So um, that would definitely strengthen your relationship and with your child as well. Um, and for external resources as well, the local libraries do offer reading programs for your son to go to, and you can also tag along as well. If you're looking for kind of recreational activities, the YMCA has swimming and other activities you can engage in. So, with that, how are you feeling so far during the session?
I feel good. Just kind of so you have an idea of like where I'm at.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And kind of piggybacking off of the library and the Boys and Girls Club, these resources can help you to have a better relationship with yourself, give you some more time, give some time to your son to kind of stimulate in an active environment. It will help to strengthen your relationship with your husband. So if that's something that you're kind of willing to look into, then I would for sure give you those resources if that's something that would interest you. The recommendations that I have for you, in addition to that, would be maybe taking walks if that's something that you're into. I don't know, have you ever tried a hiking group or anything like that?
I haven't, no.
Okay.